Yep.
Welcome to Gray Areas for March 26th, 2024, episode 616. You guys have video out there?
Yep.
We do.
Cool. It's working. Let us know out there in YouTube land if the audio is working. I can
Everyone
see
in
it.
YouTube land, take a look at Sean's weird
See it.
food and say how gross it looks.
So here's the mistake. I poured a protein shake into a bowl thinking that would some way make it better. And it in fact has made it worse on every single level. Because now it's just like soup.
It looks fucking disgusting.
Now it's soup.
So gross.
And it's not good. And it feels like it's a lot now. Like it's
It is.
somehow
It is.
more than if it was just in the cup. It's just left it in the cup.
Along with the fact that now you're going to slurp it every single bite over and over again. Yep. Just start pouring it with the bowl.
We'll see if I get desperate enough.
It's so
Anyway,
gross.
You'll notice, America, or whoever, wherever you're listening from, that Dave is not here. That's because we're like the Suns, and Chris and I are like two of the Suns that play more often, and Dave and Cody are like the Suns that are hurt.
I'm pretty
constantly.
sure I'm Bradley Beal because I'm the newest one. I don't think there's any way around me being Bradley.
Yeah,
You know
that
what?
could
I almost
be.
said you were Damian Lee, so Bradley Beal is actually.
No, I'm gonna
an improvement.
be. No, I want to be Bradley Beal.
All right. Dave can be Nurkic.
Exactly.
Dave is gone, but he has an excused absence, so it's okay. He has a note from his teacher. But he did let us know in advance. But we did decide, I guess, maybe because Dave was gone or maybe because we were just going to do it anyways, that Cody could come back on. If Dave was going to be here, maybe Cody is excommunicated. But
That's how these things work.
I mean, I could have shut up last week, infected all of you, and then I'd just be doing the show by myself right now.
You know what, though? It's just like sports, where like it's just opportunity. You know, would Tom Brady be who he is if that one guy didn't get hurt on the Patriots?
His name was Drew Bledsoe, for the record.
that
It
one
was
guy,
Drew
I think, is fine.
Bledsoe? That was.
Yes. Also, watch the Patriots documentary on Apple. If you hate the Patriots, you'll really enjoy it.
Anyways, Dave needs to get his dumb ass back in town so we can do whatever, the chicken nugget. Or
I
whatever
want to do
thing
chicken. I wanted to do chicken nuggets until I bought a bag of frozen chicken strips last night, and it was one of the worst fucking things I've eaten.
We should do burgers. I'm telling you. I know it's hard because, like, how do you keep it fresh? It's just going to be eating a bunch of cold burgers. But
I think you're right.
we have In-N-Out. We have Mama Burger. That's like
we
actually
don't
a
have
local
In-N-Out.
place.
We don't have In-N-Out.
Well, yeah, we do. I mean, it's
We
coming.
might by the time Dave visits.
Yeah,
maybe.
you're right.
When is-
Or maybe it'll never open.
Maybe. It could just be like, for years, that's been the rumor in Flagstaff. Was going to get it. No, it's not. It's going to get, I mean, I think this building looks like a actual building, but could just be the most elaborate ruse yet.
No.
So I did watch. Funny enough, our pizza eating idea was co-opted by a cooking show I watch on YouTube, Binging with Babish.
They stole it from us.
They did the pizza.
I stole
thing.
from another YouTuber.
Yeah, which he stole anyways. But yes, he did pizza. But I noticed he also did brownie mixes, homemade brownies, and they made one tray of like he did like I think 14 of them, which is excessive.
Well, I don't know if I love the idea at first, but then I think about it and it's like, well, that's nice because anything we can do that doesn't need to be preserved as hot has a lot more staying power because then we can, you know, whether it's something that we get outside or something we make here, it can be preserved. With a burger one, it's like we either have to eat all those really quickly and have like all four of us get like 3 different ones on our way home to do the show, which is possible, or there's some of them are going to get cold and it's just not going to work.
I mean, you could assign each of us a restaurant. Like I could go to Wendy's, we can go to McDonald's, and someone sad can go to Burger King, and someone sadder can go to Jack in the Box.
Right.
And you can just rush it right back. It wouldn't be great, but the thing is, it's like it's not even so much that. It's like we just have to rush the show really quick. To
Yeah,
eat them.
or we have to do
Go
it not
down to
live, which was technically the way it was with pizza.
Yes.
But then again, the other problem there is even with pizza, we were able to stagger it to where like we put the next pizzas in the oven as we were eating those.
Yeah.
So like it didn't take too long start to finish. We didn't have a lot of cuts in between. To go back out and get more burgers to make sure they're fresh is going to take us like 3 hours.
I'm gonna keep
For real,
brainstorming
we could consider paying Maisie
to just keep going and
to
getting
just
food.
like make a delivery. All right,
She-
get out.
Honestly, she should just sign up for DoorDash and be our personal DoorDasher, so she gets paid.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like she actually gets the DoorDash money
Yeah.
along with us.
See, it sounds more. I'm not opposed to the brownie thing, but I'm in the mood more for something savory.
It was more of an idea of like what other mixes or whatever could we make there. That's what it wasn't brownies I wanted to do or cookies specifically. It was that's a cool idea of you can. But to Chris's point, you can prep that and it's just sitting there. and then gets ready to go, and you don't have to worry about it.
Peter has a good suggestion and a bad one. He says, or for balance, make all the burgers cold for fairness. And I'm like, what Dave just said, actually, who's in the chat. Hi, Dave. Nobody, like, fast food burgers cold are fucking terrible. They're all going to score terribly because, like, they'll resemble something. You'll have an idea in your head what it's supposed to be like. I feel like we have a tier list that's just all bottom tier.
Yeah, how many bathrooms are in this house for when we eat all the fast food burgers cold? Because we need to all have our own individual bathroom.
That's also true. We only have 3, so if Dave is here, we're going to have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, we have 3.5, so we're okay. We have 4.
Okay.
That means Maisie's not allowed to sample the things that we're making her go get.
No.
But other than that, it's fine.
Okay, we can each have our own individual toilet to go throw up in, or just destroy with shit.
Sure.
And when I say pay her, I mean in thank yous.
Not actual money.
Not in money. That's crazy.
I'm gonna come up with an idea. We should make a tier list of the things we should sample.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be something frozen again. Like that to me. Even if it's not chicken nuggets. It probably makes the most sense.
I think at some point, and I'm not thinking this should be next, I think savory is a good idea. At some point, Oreos could be a tier list on their own.
Oh, yeah.
So the other
There's
idea...
like 30 different kinds we can get in Flagstaff between the different stores.
The other idea I had was French fries. Frozen fries. We eat them a lot anyway. And you could get like the Arby's curly ones or the regular like crinkle cut ones or the seasoned ones. There's actually enough of those, and it's not too expensive.
Well,
I thought that made sense.
I like that also because we can have like 1 fry a piece if we want, or a couple. But you can put, let's say, 8 Checkers fries and 8 Red Robin fries, and like you can get 6 to 8 of those probably on 1 cookie sheet.
Yeah.
So those would be a lot easier to do a bunch of because they're not so big.
That was my other idea, having wandered the fast food aisles yesterday.
So that might not be
figure out burgers though. We gotta find.
It is a good idea. Unless you just go to the burger place individually, set up a phone, record ourselves eating the fast food, and then we just drive from fast food place to fast food place.
I'm going to be honest. The idea, I think it's a really good idea that we should do, and also the idea makes me feel sick.
Well, you can get 1 burger and cut it up into quarters.
I understand that. I thought I was going to feel worse after the pizzas, and I only had a part of each pizza, but still, something about fast food burger, again, if we do it right, I think there's a way to make them still relatively fresh, but if they are not, and we eat several of those, like, we could do 12 to 15 different burgers.
I will say the other catch to that is we cannot do it during the wintertime in Flagstaff, because when I take fast food home now by myself, it's not really warm by the time I get home anyways when it's 20 degrees.
Well, not to mention the prospects of sending Maisie out into a death zone.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
there's
not
3
worried
inches
about
of snow.
Because in my head, I'm thinking of like, oh yeah, the In-N-Out burger, the Mama burger is all going to be really great. And then, yeah, you're right, though. We have to eat the Jack in the Box burger and the Burger King burger. Mm-hmm. Even split into 4 is like,
also, I love the idea of her going to get something somewhere, and we're waiting here on the show, and she takes like 35 minutes to get back with a burger, and it's just like, now we've eaten 4 burgers across 3.5 hours as we're doing the show.
There is that problem, too, where all it takes is, like, even if we time it all out really well and get good routes for Maisie to take, one person having delays, like one fast food place being like, oh, like In-N-Out. Okay, we're going to get In-N-Out. Oh, shit, the line's out into Milton. Yep. Oh, no. Yep. Now she's not going to be home for 30 minutes, and now we have a gap in between, and it's been 3 hours.
In-N-Out might destroy Flagstaff, like...
Oh, absolutely, because the Milton corridor is about to go into phase 2 of construction in June.
As we just put in the paper, there's a giant disaster that's coinciding with In-N-Out opening and Milton going down to 2 lanes. Probably is just the worst fucking combination in the world.
Yeah, I mean, Maisie volunteers Peter. I bet Peter will be willing to do it, especially because we can cut them in. We can also have them help rate like we did with the pizza folks, like we had them give scores. Like, there's a way to do it, no question. We'll just see if it's... Well, first of all, it's all irrelevant if Dave's not here. So since Dave's not visiting for 3 more years, I guess it's a moot point.
Again, you could record it on whatever camera and do it in Phoenix. You could theoretically do that.
Oh, sure. And it might almost be easier in some ways, depending on where you're at in Phoenix, to find many of these locations
when we have
clustered.
a Wendy's there and In-N-Out there, or McDonald's there, and we just drive in separate directions.
I like that everyone wants to pay me in kisses. That's really nice. And also,
you should feel loved.
But the thing that I don't like, though, is then we're catering to Dave if we do it in Phoenix. You know?
Right.
And I don't want to do that.
And Dave, by the way, breaking news, is not going to be on for Madden either. He texted while we were starting. So hold that against him. We're not going to play
Madden then.
2 months, not 3 years. Well, we'll see. We'll see, Dave. We'll see.
We can't play Madden with 3 of us.
I don't think we're going to.
No.
And NBA is actually pretty much ready to go. We can't start that without Dave. That would be actually the biggest blasphemy.
I mean, as Chris knows, I was going to pitch that we just play Uno as filler times on the app thing. Chris knows why I think we should play Uno.
Or we also could just start basketball.
You're just so fucking
You
mean.
know, I mean, last year we played like 30 games. You know, it's just
What's
one.
one? We'll just
And
play a game that we wouldn't have played.
No.
And I have a pitch for the new season too, but we have the first episode, which is like the reveal of everything that's going on and who's in it and what's happening. I think Dave would be sad to miss that. He wouldn't be sad to miss one regular season game, but it's the first one. It's the whole new game, the whole new system.
We're never gonna play Madden again. I think that's like the answer here.
That does seem to be the way it's going. Yeah. However, we're here to talk about something different today, and I need to go to my notes again real quick because just like when we brought back Time Capsule, we're bringing back another old segment today, and I've done the research on it because I'm a psychopath, and I was doing it during all the meetings I had today. So we're bringing back Hall of Fame, as it says at the top of the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, you already knew. If you're listening, you had no idea until now. But Hall of Fame was a segment that we ran quite a bit in the 300-ish range. Popped up around like 360 and then died by about 400 until it came back once without Sean here like 30 episodes ago. It was just me and Dave.
I was about to dispute you and say, like, what do you mean bring back? Like, it wasn't that long ago since we've done it.
Oh, it was.
Wow, 300 episodes
Pretty
ago
much
is quite a lot.
2018, 2019 was the heyday for Hall of Fame. And again, we did it
that's
once.
pre-pandemic.
Did it once like 6 months ago.
It's a whole other universe.
Who'd you do it with 6 months ago?
Just Dave.
No, I know. I was just curious who the people
I'm going to
were.
bring up the list here in a second, and I'll tell you
okay.
exactly who was on it.
Who'd you do it with?
Yeah. Do it! Can you not sort? Can we sort by most recently modified, please? That'd be terrific. Thank
John,
you.
I feel like you keep eating this shake soup, and I don't think it's going down. For
All right.
the deep cut reference here of nerdiness is this is fucking Dumbledore drinking that water in the cave thing, and he just keeps fucking drinking it, and it's not actually going anywhere, and he's just getting more and more, dead. And I think that's what's happening to you.
But they're going to reference a challenge.
No, I could, but no. Again, we haven't been allowed to have our challenge, which when season 40 debuts, I'm just demanding that we.
Oh
get our
my god,
challenge
this
show.
could have been the episode.
It could have.
Chris
been,
would have
yeah.
killed himself, but we could have done it.
I've killed myself for less before.
That's true.
I mean, like, season 40 is set up very, very well since we're going to
It
vamp
is.
until Chris is
We
done
should.
with this.
When does it air?
It does. They're filming. They just departed and are filming.
Okay,
right now.
cool.
I found my results finally. I got it up first time and it hadn't refreshed to reflect what I did today, so that was annoying. Yes, to your point, Dave, Sean was the turf champion of Hall of Fame. In fact, he goes on a 5-minute rant in the J.K. Rowling episode about how we're going to be judged wrong for history by not having her in there, and it might be the worst thing that has reflected upon him in the entire show. Not his fault. He didn't know at the time.
Say, to be fair,
I will allow you to say to be fair. However, I will also point out that you started the second time we did Hall of Fame by doubling down on the fact that the whole segment was a sham because she wasn't in the Hall of Fame.
well, right, but that was also before she went totally out.
Okay, are you willing to triple down?
No, not now. I would like to officially walk it back.
We will need to rescore her at some point. We talked about revisiting it with some folks potentially down the road. Now, of course, we have a different panelist. I will say, and having reflected upon this, it was one of Michelle's best segments. She really took a measured approach to this, and I found myself being like, yeah, her scores are the closest to where our group score is on a regular basis. So props to her. She's dead, though, so she's no longer involved in the voting. Whatever part of the Hall of Fame she had is over.
You didn't find mine to be the most measured?
Sometimes, I mean, you took it relatively seriously overall. It's just there's one particularly bad black eye on the whole
Sean,
thing.
Which is not my fault, though.
For a very specific audience, you took a really measured take
that,
on J.K.
I'm
Rowling.
the hero.
For
Yeah.
those that subset of people,
Yeah.
you're the fucking hero of the show.
So that doesn't look especially good. She got a 6.5.
I'm not sure the same show in which I went on a socialist rant a couple weeks ago. I don't think that you have those viewers that are going to sympathize with you. We should go and cut it and put it on Twitter and see how many people are like, this guy understands it. This guy's right.
Give me more canceled, yeah, please. That's
So we're
what I
going to
want.
tweak this segment a bit live as we're reintroducing it because
All right.
we had 4 levels to this, and the levels were silly because we only ever had people end up in 2 of them. J.K. Rowling would now end up in one of the other 2. She would be our first candidate who made it there. But we used to have Hall of Fame, Hall of Tame, Hall of Lame, and Hall of Shame. And it was just tiered. It was like you needed an 8 or above to get into the Hall of Fame, which is still going to be the way that works. You needed a 6 or above to get Tame, a 3 or above eventually. We even changed it halfway through to get Lame, and then a 0 to a 3 to get Shame. Nobody ever ended up below a 6.
Well, because
We
you
should do-
only pick people that are that you like. So,
So at least 3
Kind of.
levels, right? Fame, maybe tame, and shame.
And I don't
Because
even
then it accounts for.
what I'm doing is basically that. I'm merging tame and lame, and we're not even going to name them. You either
Okay.
make it in the Hall of Fame, or you make it in the Hall of Shame, or you're just lost to the annals of history. If you're not good enough to crack either one of those, then you must not have been memorable enough. Rememberable.
like the Oscars and the Razzies, and then every other movie that existed in the middle.
Pretty much, yeah. So I have the bar at 8+ still for Hall of Fame because that's the way it did work, and I think it makes sense. It's higher than Time Capsule, but I think because it is Hall of Fame, it's not just like, well, let's preserve what was important. It's let's preserve what's the best. But I only have it taking a 4 or lower to get in the Hall of Shame. We'll see how that works as we start to do it going forward. I don't know that either candidate today is going to meet that threshold, so we'll need to start thinking about some candidates that might be on the low side. I don't think there's going to ever be a case where we're like, well, we're going to bring this name up, and I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they'll be Hall of Fame, maybe they'll be Hall of Shame. But it might just be a matter of, do they clear the bar, make it in the Hall of Fame or not, or make it in the Hall of Shame or not? So, in the past, last time without you, we did Mark Hamill, who was 7.6, did not make it in the Hall of Fame.
I agree.
And Will Smith, who was a 6.5, and has
Man.
probably even gone down further since
Oh,
then.
well, I'm sure because the Oscar thing had not happened when you guys
It
did
had happened,
Oh, okay.
but some more of the details about it and her continuing to cuck him and all that jazz had not yet. So
He was
it has
absolutely
only
going to work that word in today.
Yes, I had to eventually. I don't even like the word, but if there was ever like a definition where you opened it up to that page and you saw a picture, it was going to be Will Smith. So neither of those two made it. Among the other candidates we did, J.K. Rowling was a 6.5, would be much lower if we did it again. Adam Sandler was a 5. Johnny Depp was a 5.5. M. Night Shyamalan was a 6. Ryan Reynolds was a 6.11 because Sean gave some decimal ass score for only that one. Will Smith was a 6.5, as mentioned. Jim Carrey a 7.125. Seth MacFarlane a 7.25, and Mark Hamill a 7.6. Those are all the failed candidates.
I feel like Ryan Reynolds should be higher.
We talked about how he was on an upswing. I don't think he would make it.
I hate to tell you that without Deadpool, he still sucks.
Well, I know.
Like
but
as like overall, like as an actor, like he doesn't have a lot of success and stuff like that. It's just his whole vibe, I guess, makes him more fun now with the Wrexham and all that stuff. But I don't think he would.
I mean, we're not supposed to be doing him today, but
Yeah.
you have the Wrexham stuff. You have Deadpool, of course. You have The Proposal, which kind of like started his resurgence.
Sure.
And then you had like Detective Pikachu. I mean, he's been
Does
in
he,
some good stuff.
he's not in that movie until the end.
Well,
I mean, he's in it as a
he's
voice.
the voice of Pikachu.
Oh, it's fucking Pikachu. It's not him.
Yeah, I mean, it is still.
It's not him.
Oh.
I'm not allowing voice work to count towards people's fucking acting.
What
Well,
do you
then,
mean?
then you know exactly why Mark Hamill didn't make it, didn't you? Because he's the most iconic Joker.
Exactly.
And yes,
You're literally just.
I'm
that
including
makes
Jack
sense.
Nicholson.
Anyways, I'm derailing us.
and
Sorry,
yes,
sorry.
I'm including Heath Ledger. No, Mark Hamill didn't make it because, I mean, we talked about he's like one of the best people we've ever nominated for this segment, but the fact remains that outside of Star Wars, and yes, the Joker, that career is,
Isn't he also Cockknocker in Jay and Silent Bob?
Sure, I mean, he has other roles, no doubt, but it's not like he ever reached anything approaching the pinnacle of Star Wars. Maybe he couldn't have, but we've done Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford has also, we did George Lucas, and in the process, we talked about how, like, there's Indiana Jones along with Star Wars, right? Harrison Ford would be the same thing. Harrison Ford has other huge vehicles besides Star Wars.
The Fugitive.
Sure.
The Fugitive, yeah. I
I
mean,
love that movie.
Well, that's what I'm
Maybe
saying.
not
Like,
the
Harrison
first
Ford
one,
would be a
but-
fun one because now as he gets older, I mean, you could look at his career differently, but at the same time, like, he'd probably make it if we had to guess.
Mhm.
Because unlike Mark Hamill, he's got other huge roles in his career. In the Hall of Fame, we have George Lucas, who was an 8 on the dot, despite the old trilogy or the newer old trilogy.
That seems like a bad call.
We had them all right around there too. I think it was 2 8s, a 7.5, and an 8.5.
We fucked up.
Yeah, you did.
Bruce Willis at an 8.125. Homer Simpson at an 8.3. Maybe that was the one we did without you.
I feel like even Bruce Willis, that's a little high. If I'm just thinking about it right now.
Bryan Cranston at an 8.375.
That's
Stephen
too high.
Colbert at an 8.5. And Link at an 8.75. And if you argue against Link now, I swear to God, I'm
No.
going to come out there and stab you with
I'm
a
actually
shiv.
going to say Link is probably the only one that I'm like,
I was like, is Link your highest scoring
yeah,
character
Yes, he is.
person off of that?
Yes, he is.
yeah. No, you can make the argument is Link's not really a character, but we've already had that discussion. And
We
we've
did.
decided like he kind of is. So
There was like a 10-minute discussion where I was only playing devil's advocate to make you mad, and it worked. I told you it was payback for the first 350 episodes, and it was. So that's the threshold. So basically, just like Time Capsule, we've had about a third of the candidates make it in. Now, again, the Hall of Shame is a possibility. I don't think our 2 candidates today will be in there, but we've only had 6 successfully make it.
It's so funny because you set the barometer, which I appreciate. Let's have something to compare it against. I disagree with like almost all of them now, except Link probably. Like Bruce Willis's career, I know like he has like some health things going on, but it's not fair. But like his career sucks now.
Well, he's not acting anymore, and
no,
he took a bunch of shitty roles of movies because he didn't know what he was doing.
Well, I know. Well, that's the whole thing. But remind me, Chris, is this like in my head? I'm kind of almost doing like then and now, which isn't like it's not like Time Capsule, but we sort of do that, right? Or is it just
no? It's more so a byproduct of when we do it. So we talked about with a couple of the candidates like J.K. Rowling, but also Will Smith. When we decide to happen to tackle a candidate, it makes a huge difference because Will Smith in the early to mid 2000s is probably a surefire Hall of Famer, but then at other points he isn't. Ryan Reynolds in 2007 is a surefire Hall of Shame, but now he isn't because he's rehabbed his career.
Okay. Then I disagree less with that.
I mean, the whole it's the whole premise of like you don't induct someone to the Hall of Fame in the middle of their sports career. Like you would give them more time, and maybe they'd earn more to be able to get in. Or I guess in your Bruce Willis point, they would trail off worse and hang around too long and look even worse for the whole career.
Yeah,
totals.
but like Michael Jordan, you're going to be like, oh, I don't think Hall of Fame because the Wizards.
And there are some places, it depends. For athletes, it's typically after they retire. Some organizations do it right after. Some make you wait 3 to 5 years. But there are other places like the Poker Hall of Fame will nominate people who are in the middle of their careers if they feel like the body of work up to that point has been strong enough that it's like, well, even if they fell off, like this dude won 3 bracelets and this and that, like whatever, right? It's the same thing here. We run the risk of, if Bryan Cranston kills a bunch of people in a few years, we might have to reevaluate whether or not he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
but as of that moment, everything he had done to that point merited inclusion.
Probably lucky you didn't do Kevin Spacey, huh?
Sure. There's another example. There's lots of examples.
Because he for sure would have been.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, absolutely.
I think he would have been.
Depending on when you did it, he was 100% in.
Exactly.
Sure.
And,
think about the 6 or 7 different phases of Johnny Depp's career, who we did do and did not make it in, but there's probably a couple points at which he does.
I would have never let that happen.
That's also now the point going forward, too, is we have a different panel slightly, so that these decisions may be altered going forward.
Cody would have stood proudly on his high horse and proclaimed to the heavens
that Johnny Depp's not a good actor. He's not a good actor at all, and it doesn't make any sense.
Cody knew the whole time that Johnny Depp was an asshole.
Oh, I don't even factoring him being an asshole, which he may not actually be an asshole anymore.
Yeah, who knows actually? What the fuck?
I mostly just am like, oh, cool, he's quirky and weird, and everyone's like, oh, he must be a really good actor. Look at the cool roles he does. I'm like, this is shit. It's almost all shit. I don't understand what everyone's fucking obsessed with this dude. He's shit. And for example, I'm going to bring up how much shit he is with one of the actors today. Boosh, transition.
Okay. But Jack Sparrow's pretty good, though.
Sure.
For 2.5 movies.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, cool. We're going to talk about, spoilers, Rocky, and I'm probably going to point out how many fucking movies of those were actually good, even if I love them.
Well, okay. Why don't we get into it? So the first one is Sylvester Stallone.
Is that who you want to start with?
Oh. Yes.
Is that who you want to start with?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I mean, unless we want to save like the biggest name for last.
I don't know. I don't know who's a bigger name.
We're going to do Sylvester Stallone. We're going to do Sylvester Stallone. So
I hate to say it, but Sylvester Stallone Sylvester Stallone's the bigger name. Yes. And we can have that debate, I guess, if you want. But
no,
if you think there are other candidates bigger than Sylvester Stallone, we have a problem from jump.
I'm just trying to fuck with Sean.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sylvester Stallone. Let's see. Gosh. It's funny not growing up with him and when he was like really in his heyday. I'm sure there's about 1 million action movies that I don't even know existed that he starred in. Because he was in everything. But also like you look at, I feel like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So it was like Arnold versus Sylvester Stallone. But I can name you like a ton of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. I can't name you a ton of Sylvester Stallone movies. I got like Rambo and Rocky.
I'm looking through them because there's one there's one I have other than his Rambo and Rocky stuff. He
and like Demolition Man, I guess.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry, Dredd, not Demolition Man.
Just Dredd.
Judge Dredd, of course, yeah.
They're really, I mean, there really isn't a whole lot. I mean, Demolition Man and Judge Dredd are both movies he's in.
Yeah.
I assume like I would also think of Cliffhanger.
Oh God, yeah. Well,
Yes, and the
is
Expendables.
recent. I definitely know Expendables.
Expendables, obviously.
I was going back
all the
through
big
them.
action stars are in it, but it's worth noting.
Cliffhanger's not good.
Yeah, no, it's not a good movie.
I like remember it
it's
being
a
good,
movie.
and then we watched it recently, and it's bad.
The other thing that I would have probably recognized him from being in is Super Stupid is Spy Kids.
Oh, I didn't know
He's in the
that.
third Spy Kids.
Oh, okay.
Peter mentions Demolition Man. That's obviously noteworthy. I think Tango and Cash is worth mentioning. But you're right. He was definitely like one of the action stars of the 80s, a little bit into the 90s. Arnold probably has him pipped there. He does have something that Arnold does not, which is like a best picture.
Yeah.
So there is some areas where he does have a leg up over Arnold, although he does not have the cultural footprint that Arnold Schwarzenegger does. He, of course, was also a governor, and Sylvester Stallone can't say that. But I think the comparison between the two is inevitable. And I almost thought about pitching having the two of them be the ones up for it because of that reason, but I guess we'll save Arnold for another day.
Okay.
But I think the comparison is inevitable, and their careers are going to be weighed against each other when you consider them for something like this.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like Arnold, like you said, we're inevitably going to compare them. He was more consistent. Like I know more of his movies, like we talked about, but I feel like Stallone's heights were higher. Like Rocky, a few of them, and the first Rambo especially was like a really good movie, and it like really set the bar for a lot of those action movies because it was. As ridiculous as the series got, the first one was like pretty measured and sort of gritty, and then they were like, "Ah, fuck it, let's have him run away from a helicopter" in the later ones, which is strange. So the weird thing about Stallone is he started big, and then went nowhere for a while, and then he was like, "I'm gonna revamp my career," and he was like that fat cop in that one movie, like Hollywoodland or something. What was that movie called? He's like a sheriff and he like put on a bunch of weight. Look it up. And that didn't do what he thought it was going to do. And he's in a bunch of movies like that where they're just like not good. But then he had a resurgence. He did the new Rocky. Balboa was great. The Creed movies are great. And then the first Rambo that he redid was pretty good. And then
the 2008 one, right?
Yeah, and the next one was like, I guess, fucking terrible.
Actually, I think the one in 2008 might be the terrible one.
No, that was the good one.
Oh, it is? Okay.
That one. That one was fine.
Like a couple of years, like 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, Last Blood. You're right.
Blood.
That was that one. Yes.
You
So it was
got first blood, you gotta have the last blood.
Yeah, because I mean, I watched the reboot of Rambo in 2008 when I was in high school, and I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, I heard it was pretty good. So he had this like weird resurgence where he was like, I'm bringing back all my old characters, and like that's a recipe for disaster. And then they were like all pretty good.
Well, he did that. That's what led to Expendables basically getting created. Is he rebooted himself to exist, and then he got all the actiony people around him were willing to do a movie because he had just done Rocky Balboa and the Rambo reboot. And I think it's 3 years later. I don't know when the first Expendables came out. It was after I graduated high school, but it was early 2010.
And I liked the first two; they were good.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun premise
too.
idea of what you want to do, and then you're like, okay, we're gonna just milk the shit out of this. Series of movies now.
You know, to look at his personal life, it's pretty solid from what I know about. I think he started in porn, which is great, obviously. He had the famous story about like locking himself in a room and duct taping all the windows closed so he could write the first Rocky. Just like in one session, he wrote the whole thing. You're looking at me like I'm
just
making
listening to you. He's a weird dude.
Well, weird, but like that's commendable. And he doesn't have anything like really bad in the media, except like he's like fighting with the owners of Rocky. He doesn't like them. He feels like they shafted him, and they probably did, knowing how Hollywood works.
Probably.
But like he hasn't like killed anyone or like.
I mean, he's like, again, I make the joke, but like he's palatable enough to where he does literally have a fucking reality show with his family now. Like he's so digestible and there's nothing really egregious about him that it's just him and his daughters and his wife and they're rich. And like that's basically the premise of the stupid show. And that's built into his whole Tulsa King show that he's on Paramount right now, where he's a crappy mafia guy who gets sent to Oklahoma and then takes over the Oklahoma Mafia.
Sean, the name of the movie you're thinking of is Copland.
Copland. I said, yeah. I was something land.
I think I have heard of that.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I had heard of before now, and
Yeah.
I see now he gained like 40-something pounds.
It was bad. So to Jaguar's point,
Yep.
he's mostly right. Like Stallone overall is not the best actor, although he has a weird range because I don't know how many actors can be as bad as Stallone, but also on multiple occasions get Oscar nominations. It's weird. It just like, and I think the only times it happened is when he was in Rocky, and there's just something about that character that like brings something out of him.
Well, the cast this Copland movie, it should have been good.
Yeah, it should have been. Yeah.
And yet, and I think the other problem is, Peter mentions this, like, I think Sylvester wanted to be like Arnold a lot. And he mentions like there's a story about Arnold tricking Sly into taking an off a movie role because Arnold faked interest in it, called Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, which sounds like something you shouldn't be tricked into attaching yourself into. But regardless, to Jack Rock's point, yeah, I think the highs are so high. And I think people would say, like, well, Arnold had more range because he did like Jingle All the Way, and he did like True Lies, and he did what the fuck is the one with
Kindergarten
No, and the one with Danny DeVito, Twins. Like
Twins.
He does a lot of off the wall stuff in the 90s that I think you would credit him as having more range, but I'm like, I think it was just Arnold being goofy instead of serious.
Yeah.
It's not to take away from those. I like a lot of those movies, but I'm not sure it showcases his range.
I'm telling you, if Sly took the lead of Jingle All the Way, I would laugh at that terrible movie the same way I laugh as Arnold being in it. I promise you. I would thought it was the same stupid shit.
Because the premise is great.
You know what, though? But Sly wasn't in a lot of... I do think Arnold has a little more range. He can tap into the goofiness more. Now, it's not to say Arnold's like this fucking amazing actor. And he does just lean into like, oh, it's my accent and being stupid.
Exactly.
But Stallone is only really good when he's Rocky and sometimes Rambo.
It's true. I mean, and again, how much? I mean, when we're looking at the Rocky movies in terms of like quality movie, how many of those are quality movies? And I'm not counting Creed. I'm gonna go there in a second. It's like the first Rocky's really good. The second Rocky's pretty good. And then we start descending down to like, I love Rocky 4, but I love that movie because it's unintentionally hilarious for what it is. And I don't like, you start to edge into like where he is kind of ridiculous because Rocky's rich now and there's no rhyme or reason for any of this. It's not really hard acting. I think in the first couple when he's down on his luck and he's trying to start his career, yeah, it's actually good acting. And then it transitions into not really good acting.
There's not much acting in 3 and like
I mean, four is 6 montages cut together. Do you
count montage as acting?
Yeah.
Because...
Well, the thing is, I think it almost was like, we're going to take the action movie formula and apply it to the Rocky movies. Because the first one's like a drama.
It is.
Yeah.
And the second one is almost too much of a drama. It's almost too sad and serious for most of its runtime. And then you get to 3, and it's like, well, now here's Clubber Lang, and here's Thunderlips, and here's cameos.
It's a cartoon.
And then 4 is just, like you said, it's like an action movie. Here's training sequences. Here's a slugfest of a fight. Very little story attachment. And then 5 happens, and we don't talk about the series.
Well, let me ask. So on 5, because I want to talk about the next few. So 5, how is his performance? It's probably bad, but I've never seen it. So like
5 is one of the worst. In all honesty, Rocky 5 is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
I know it's a terrible movie.
It's not really because of him, though.
It's not really. It's really not his fault.
Is
it's
his
just
performance.
No, it's just he's got nothing to work with.
Exactly.
Okay.
The characters we care about aren't really there. His son's a piece of shit, and the plot is stupid as fuck.
In all honesty, what they do in Creed, where he takes Apollo under his wing, is what they fucking tried to do in 5.
Yeah, and failed miserably.
And they basically, honestly, redid the premise of 5, except for Rocky can't like fight back anymore, and then he has cancer.
Well, let me tell you. So a couple things. So Balboa, is great. He's great in it too. Like that's a great performance of this old guy, and Balboa is kind of sad.
It is sad.
A lot
it
of
is
it.
sad.
And it kind of goes back to, in many ways, just kind of being a drama. Like he spent a lot of time in his restaurant. He's like helping that family or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I love, this is another character thing. He has a snippet from like behind the scenes, and he has a real boxer in that movie. Mason Dixon.
Yes, he's a real fighter. Antonio Tarver, I believe, was the actual.
So he's a real fighter, and he's talking behind the scenes, and he's going, this guy, real boxer, doesn't want to take a hit when we're boxing. Me, not a real boxer, I want the real hits. And it was just so interesting to me. I was like, I love that. I love that he's really in there. And I know the boxing It's gotten better, but it's not what you would say is realistic boxing. But he really is in there. He's taking hits and he's doing the part. And he was also like 60 years old when he did that movie.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think there's a reason why he revisited the character, because he kind of reconciled how much they fucked up 5 with what he did in Rocky Balboa and absolutely what he did in Creed. And you're right. I think that's where when he doesn't have the physical body and like to be the action star anymore, I think when he fucking has to actually lean on a little bit of that dramatic acting, you're like, oh, well, this is what Rocky 1 was. Like, it was there all along. Then he got into the mumbly, cartoon character for part of 2, absolutely 3 and 4.
You could change.
And then, like Chris said, I've only watched Rocky 5 a couple times because I can only handle it so much. But like, there's like snippets of like, okay, this you might actually have something here if anything else about this movie was worth saving.
Yeah. Oh, Jack Rock. I mean, Kurt Russell. I'm imagining Kurt Russell in The Hateful Eight. I'm imagining Sylvester Stallone in that role. No, it doesn't work. Yeah, Kurt Russell's on another level.
Yeah, I'm imagining Sylvester Stallone in Tombstone, and it just doesn't work for me.
I mean,
no.
You can dig into a lot of Sly's other like roles and stuff like that, but the thing that's going to get him into the Hall of Fame is being the main character of 2 monumentally successful box office wise series, and then also the creator of the Expendable series, which isn't really good, but it made a lot of money again. So he's really in the Hall of Fame off of the back of like making blockbusters. That's pretty much what he would get in for, and that's why I'm like, when you kind of reference Arnold, I'm like, he does beat Arnold in a way in terms of like outright blockbusters. Like he probably doesn't actually have him beat in terms of like sheer money, because I'm assuming Terminator made a fuck ton of money. But I'd actually be curious to know, as like they're the starring roles, like whose box office numbers are actually better, adjusted, because I mean you go back and show Rocky and stuff, and it's not really fair. But I'm curious where those 2 actually rank in terms of like money.
Yeah, well, so
and I didn't do that research.
Did he write Creed? I can't imagine he did.
The first one?
Yeah.
No, didn't Ryan Coogler write and direct, and Rocky helped a little bit on it?
I believe that was the case.
Sorry, not Rocky. Sly helped write it.
Please don't call me Sylvester. It's Rocky.
He may have a writing credit on that, actually, though.
I think so.
And then I think he did not do... Oh, no, he maybe did do 2. Now I don't know. But the point is, he is a writer. And sometimes what he writes is not very
actually,
good.
He's only listed as a producer for 1. He did write 2.
Okay, yeah, which I actually really like 2 as well. It's not as good as 1, but it's really good. His performance in 1 is like one of the better performances that I've connected with in a movie. I'm not saying he's like should have won Best Actor, although he was nominated. But I really related to. I thought he was so good.
It's one of the best acting performances ever in a sports movie.
It's the perfect evolution for the character, because it was his mentors that helped him throughout the series, especially between Mick and Creed himself before he gets murdered for no reason. So like to have him finally take up that mantle when he's too old to fight. And he was already too old to fight in Balboa.
Yeah.
But just young enough, and there's just enough real life heavyweights who have stuck around for too long to make that believable. Now he has to transition into this role, and he's got all this wisdom from his predecessors, so it's perfect for him.
And you know what? I said he's not funny. I'm thinking when Michael B. Jordan tells him about the cloud, and he just looks into the sky, doesn't say anything. I'm like, okay, he can do funny.
It's not slapstick funny.
Yeah.
It's like tongue-in-cheek kind
sneaky
of
funny.
Yes. Yeah.
Deadpan funny.
Yeah, deadpan's probably a better way to say it. Yeah.
So he is a writer at times, producer, actor, but he's also been exactly steroid user.
Yeah. Never mind the outright steroid use throughout Rocky. I guess I could highlight that.
But he's also in some really not very good movies.
Yes.
So what are we thinking here?
Well, we usually give a score, and the goal is to give your score independently and not game the system. We're good about doing that. No one's ever really tried to tweak a score to make sure somebody got in or didn't get in. But again, you keep in mind the metrics: 8 as an average or higher to get in. 4 if it's not going to get a 4 or lower as a group, but if he did, 4 or lower in the Hall of Shame. I will go first. I will say 2 things. First, we are talking about redoing some of our past lists, and one of them is video game characters, I think, is the one we're looking to do at the end of this year. It's the 10-year anniversary of that, so it'll be interesting to see how the lists change. One we haven't done is just movie characters. And talking this much about Rocky Balboa makes me think about how a list like that would break down, because if you're just basing this on Rocky, I feel like Sylvester Stallone has a case.
Yeah.
But we're not. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in that career, some of which is also good or great, but not all of it, right? So as much as I love the Rocky series, like sentimentally, as I'm looking at the Hall of Fame as this holistic being where only the best gets in, the absolute highest I can go on Sly is like 7. And that's the peak I can go to, having loved those roles in particular. I think I'm going to go 6.5. I almost feel that's too low.
Still my score.
But like, I think that's where you have to settle because there's just some unremarkable stuff in that career. And it's not like, well, there was banger after banger.
Well, I don't like the Razzies. I actually think that they should not exist. I feel like as an institution, if you have to continually apologize for what you're doing, just fucking stop.
Yeah,
like, just
totally.
go away. You're
Yeah.
not funny, and it's just kind of weird and mean-spirited, and I don't really like it. So there's my getting on my pedestal about the Razzies, but he deservedly was on there like a few different times. Like, he has given some dog shit
I believe
performances.
he won Worst Actor of the Decade at one point.
And you could make an argument for it, except for the exceptions that we have where he just like really leans in. So yeah, I think what on the other side of that is the huge movies that he's been in, the huge characters he's been a part of, the fact that he's a good guy, can be a very good writer. I don't know if his porn was good, so there's a part of this that maybe am missing some context. But I'm gonna go 7. Maybe 7.3, but I think Chris gets mad when I do decimals, and there's not really a reason.
He just did 6.5, so he
Well,
just
no,
did
Well, you're allowed half
weird
points.
decimals.
Oh, you mean bullshit numbers?
Like, he's okay with
Yeah.
like the 20-point scale, but like once I start doing the 100-point scale, basically it starts to get.
You
like,
went 2 decimal points on that one that I mentioned. So
so I can't do
that's a 1,000-point scale.
I can't do 6.49 to go right below you.
I mean, you could.
You can do
Well,
that.
then I'm gonna do 7.3.
No, I'm not gonna do that. I was gonna do 6.5, like Chris said. I think, like you said, the hits of that are so few and far between that are actually good acting performances. Again, like, good for him creating the Rocky character and making a bunch of money, but that doesn't put you in the Hall of Fame. Like, you get Hall of Fame for sports. Someone can, like, Kirk Cousins isn't going to go to the Hall of Fame. He's going to make more money than any quarterback's ever made in the NFL. Like, that's not going to be good enough to get you there. And I think if the Rocky movies had a steadier performance and just a steady quality of actually being good movies as they went along and didn't go 1 was good, 2's kind of good, 3's getting bad, 4's really bad other than it's being funny, and 5 is awful, before he boots it back up again, it's just kind of too uneven to where you just crank out too many bad money, kind of just, money grabs, more or less.
I feel like Roger Ebert feels that Sylvester Stallone made him look like a fool because he compared Sylvester Stallone to a young Martin Scorsese after Rocky 1 came out.
Movie.
And then like all the sequels were released and he was like, wow, that was a bad take on my part.
It is like, you get those certain like award-winning performances, right? Where like this actor shows up, they were perfect for that role, and they don't really go on to act in a whole lot of else, but they were so perfect for that role specifically. And that's like what Sly's like basically born to have played Rocky the very first time. And then it's like, he's still not getting a lot of acting, other offers, or he doesn't make the right choices. So he just kind of leans back into Rambo again and Rocky again. I'm going to keep making some money to keep doing this. And he never found another role. There's like, again, we went through his IMDb or whatever. And it's like, how many other roles just like super stood out that he hit? It's like, no, we write him back. He's like, oh, well, old Rocky's really good. And it is really good. It's a great performance, but it's still nonetheless.
And it didn't win Best Actor.
No. Yeah.
No.
Rocky
got
won
nominated
Best
both
Picture,
times.
and I think it won 2 or 3 other Oscars as well. But Best Actor, although he was nominated, he didn't win.
Nope.
And I think inevitably, we talked about the Arnold comparison, obviously, because I think it's right there on a T. But we mentioned Bruce Willis, and as we talked about Bruce Willis back in the day, we mentioned that Bruce Willis doesn't have a Best Actor either. But the difference with Bruce Willis is he's got several different series that he's helmed and been the main or like one of the main actors for, where I think that was why he ultimately made the cut. You look at the body of work and you go, okay, well, yes, of course, there's like Die Hard, but there's also, Sin City and this, right? We don't have that with Sylvester Stallone. We have one of an ensemble cast, maybe the lead guy, but still one part of the Expendables, and the other handful of things we mentioned like Tango and Cash, and then that's it.
Yep.
So I don't know how it could possibly be enough, but it's still interesting to talk about and look back on their career, especially because, Stallone's not in Bruce Willis shape, but he doesn't have a ton of time left. Then again, I guess we would have said the same thing about Harrison Ford, and he's still ticking, so I don't know.
All right. Sylvester Stallone. Hall of nothing.
Yeah.
Average human being.
Hall of Tame. That's
No, regular human being.
And this works out better now because now Tame just occupying the entire gap in between is better than it being the second best tier. Because yes,
exactly.
Tame sounds better than lame, but somebody getting a 7.5 and being in the quote Hall of Tame never really felt right.
Yeah.
So we've sidestepped that whole situation now. It's either you get in or you don't. You guys can introduce our second actor this week because, I mean, I'm not going to say I know nothing about him, but I'm not going to have a cool and clever intro.
Well, Colin Farrell's like kind of the opposite. He started as like, what was like his big, well, he was in, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, Bruges?
It's in Bruges, yes.
Bruges. Which was like pretty
Which, by the way,
good.
massive gap in my viewing. I have never seen that movie. And I need to watch it. It's on my list of I absolutely need to watch that movie because I know I'm going to like it.
But then he was in a bunch of really bad stuff.
Well, he was in a bunch of really bad stuff before he even did that.
You know what though? Like SWAT was actually kind of fun.
I have so many feelings on SWAT. Trust me.
It was like kind of fun, but so stupid. Chris, in SWAT, that there's like a terrorist in jail. And the camera goes on him, and he's like, $1 billion to anyone who gets me out.
No, he's French. You have to do the accent.
Well, I can't do a French accent.
You have to do a French accent.
$1 million.
$1 billion to whoever gets me out of here.
And then they do a montage of all these gangs, like, holy shit,
man!
And they're like getting their guns ready. It's like,
and they shoot a police helicopter out of the air in downtown Los Angeles.
So it's really stupid, but so is like Air Force One, and I still love that movie. And like,
I'll just say now, SWAT is on my list of when I need a filler movie when I'm working and I want background noise. That movie's on there because him and Samuel L. Jackson's performance together in it is just unintentionally fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I think SWAT. You mentioned Air Force One. I think Con Air is in this category, the guilty pleasure movies that are not good, but you still don't mind them being on in the background when you're doing something.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Sean, do you remember Phone Booth, in which Colin Farrell was trapped in a phone booth basically the entire movie?
So I don't know what mood I was in. I was like riveted by that movie. I don't know why, but I thought it was great.
But that's the point is, these are the things. Yeah, young Jeremy Renner is fucking amazing.
How is he gonna get out of the phone booth? Oh my god!
These are the movie choices that Colin Farrell and his agent were like, that's what we're going to do.
That's it. Kiefer Sutherland was the man in the phone booth. Did you know that? Well, I'm sorry. Colin Farrell was the guy in the phone booth, but Kiefer Sutherland was on the phone.
Yes.
And then he was like, you know what? I'm only going to be, we need to talk about Daredevil.
That's the next thing I was going to, because it literally comes out right after.
And I sort of hate his performance in Daredevil. And I'm thinking back to like, he throws like 1 million glass shards at Daredevil, and all Daredevil does is back somersault away from them. So I'm like, you're fucking bullseye. Throw a single fucking one below waist level, he'd be dead. But you throw him all at waist level, and then he's like, "Oh my god, what are you?" And it's like, "What the fuck am I watching right now?"
And then this is followed by him really accurately choosing to be in the Miami Vice movie.
Like, I've never even seen that.
Yes, in 2006 or whatever, he's in Miami Vice.
Was it terrible? Was it good?
Why the fuck would you think it would have been good?
He's optimistic. He's hopeful.
I mean, why would you have thought that? I believe it was the number one on the box office, but it was also a terrible movie.
But then he started doing like good roles. Like out of like sometimes like Robert Pattinson's a great example where they're like, "Well, your career's toast." And they're like, well, I'm going to go do like some independent good stuff. And they're like, it's not going to work.
We'll do one of these in a couple years on Robert Pattinson. And I'll be absolutely demanding after he's probably won an Oscar that he be in.
But that's what I'm saying, though. It's like you go and you're assuming it's not going to work. And most of the time it doesn't. But then sometimes it does.
I would like to point out one of my main flips on Colin Farrell is Horrible Bosses. Because he's so fucking funny as the coked out son of the company that Sudeikis has to work for. And the role is so fucking funny. I was like, oh, so is he just going to make fun of himself and be in a weird fat suit or whatever? And so I feel like he just lingered around. And this is where I'll make my transition into the Johnny Depp thing that I hinted earlier. He probably puts on the best fucking performance in those mostly terrible Fantastic Beasts movies. He's so fucking good in the role that they cast him in. And then he turns into Johnny Depp because he's not actually a real person, and Johnny Depp's actually been the character in disguise the whole time in a Colin Farrell skin suit, apparently. And I feel like that's when those movies just fell apart.
Why did they do that, out of curiosity?
Because the idea is that Johnny Depp was magical and it created a new persona for himself. Oh, yeah,
no. I know, but like I understand.
Practicality thing is
logistics.
Cody, tell me, how does the magic work? No, I'm just saying.
You mean he's not actually Johnny
because
Depp?
He can't go undercover in the American OR office while having the face of the bad guy. But what do you mean? What are you saying? Why did they do that? He couldn't continue being the character. They couldn't have him keep doing it.
Because they couldn't get him to sign. I guess my point is, you have Colin
because he
Farrell.
couldn't look like Colin Farrell, who was a fake person in the universe. That's the point.
I feel like what they should have done, but again, this was at a time where they didn't know any better. It's like you had Colin Farrell and you got rid of him for Johnny Depp.
Yes.
What a bad fucking idea.
Well, here's the thing: is I would have been like, oh, well, they mostly kind of suck as actors, whatever. And then I watched that, and then he turns into Johnny Depp, and I'm like, wait, we don't get to have Colin Farrell in this universe anymore because the person he is doesn't actually exist. So I see what you're saying. Could you have put Colin Farrell in makeup of some sort to make him keep being Grindelwald?
No. You know what? Could you have found any excuse like in those movies? There's so many fucking just teleporting in and of itself is a huge plot hole in really the whole Harry Potter universe.
Oh yes, it's true.
We're willing to overlook it. Can we not? We're drawing the line on fucking Grindelwald just because.
Here's the problem: is they got so far up their own asshole of wanting Johnny Depp to be the weirdo bad guy, whatever thing, that they just Colin Farrell was a placeholder for the twist. Like I don't think they ever had any idea that he'd actually be good in this role.
Yeah,
and then he fucking was, and then they were like, yeah, but he was a placeholder for Johnny Depp to be revealed, and now Johnny Depp can be himself because now the character is known.
I guess my question is sort of to Sean's earlier point. I mean, we've now seen how Colin can transform into certain roles. The Penguin has made that abundantly clear that he can be very different than his usual self. So couldn't they have found a way, even after the fact, to be like, wow, actually, he's testing really well with audiences, and the reception was great, and like Johnny Depp's kind of falling off a little bit. And
if you want to point out the fact that they memory wiped a bunch of people who saw that Graves was now Grindelwald, and he could have just been Graves again across the world.
It's not hard, right?
No one would have known,
doable.
and he could have kept using Colin Farrell as the cover, and then you probably would have had to use Colin Farrell and somebody else, so you could have used Colin Farrell as the cover for a lot of the movie, but then Johnny Depp or whatever the other guy who replaced Johnny Depp aren't going to be like, I'm willing to be in the movie for 10 minutes when I'm not undercover anymore.
Do you remember when they had the big reveal in the second movie, and then 3 minutes later they were like, that never happened.
Yes.
Here's the actual reveal.
Yes.
And they spent another 5 minutes on it.
Yeah, so just do that a third time and undo the other part.
So
again,
bad.
Eddie Redmayne's pretty good, but Colin Farrell's
Eddie
great
Redmayne.
in that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't think it was that good. Really. I really do. When you said Colin Farrell was like the best part of that movie, I really agree. It's not Ezra Miller.
It's not. I mean, it's some of the better dramatic acting of the stupid Harry Potter universe.
Yeah.
Because he has actual sympathy for the other wackadoodle guy that's in the fucking movie series because they fucked that movie series so bad.
Yeah.
So, point being, I guess to where I was going without dragging out way too much of fucking Fantastic Beasts is he does that, and I'm like, oh shit, he actually might be kind of a good actor. And then like the Lobster is right around there, which is a bizarre movie, but he's good in it. And then we get into, yes, he plays Penguin, and then we obviously, Banshees of Inisherin is...
Well, let's pause on Penguin, because that's incredible to me. Like, when you say, Chris mentioned the word transform, it is a literal, like, you almost can't see it. And if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't have known that that's Colin Farrell. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. And he is also very good, but like he just, from the way he looks to the sort of the character nuances that he embodies, it's like he's a completely different person.
And what examples do we have like that? There are some, but
why am I blanking on his name?
I mean, one that comes to mind for me is Marlon Brando in The Godfather. Sure. Because he modifies the entire way he speaks. He gained weight. He has like a very different looking head than he normally does because he's classically attractive. But even that's not as big of a transformation as what happens with Colin Farrell here.
I mean, even like Heath Ledger, that's a pretty big one.
That's a big one.
Oh my God.
But he's still Heath Ledger shaped. You lose him in the role, but it's not like, wow, Heath Ledger gained 100 pounds to be the Joker or something. Like he obviously went through all the makeup, and it's a really, really impressive role, but I don't think it's quite the same.
I feel like Christian Bale does it a lot. because he did it in American Hustle. I think he did it
Yeah.
not the Big Short. What's the other fucking movie?
The Machinist, where he lost a bunch of weight
Yeah.
and then he gained a bunch
And
of
then
weight for Batman.
he's Cheney, right? At some point, I think he's Dick Cheney in the
Right.
Oh yeah.
So that's who I comp it to. Is Colin Farrell did that when he was Penguin, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I feel like Bale had been doing off and on. Was like, you're just in a suit and you don't fucking look anything like yourself, but it's not hindering your performance.
And he's so good. You act like I actually hate the Penguin as a character. I think he's really just annoying. Like he always just gets on my nerves. I thought he was great in this movie, and he has the funniest line. Where what is it? Where they're on a lead. I don't remember exactly what it is, but he like points out that Batman is like going completely down the wrong path.
Yeah.
By calling out a really obvious thing. What was it? It was you didn't know that was Spanish for whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's so funny. And I'm like, I don't know if just every actor can pull off that moment as well.
And we talk about putting people or doing this too early. Well, we haven't even seen the Penguin show, which is going to come out sometime this year. And I mean, if he does as well as he did in the fucking movie, then he might end up getting nominated for an Emmy for that while he's on TV. I don't know how good the show will be. Maybe it'll suck. There's a chance that he's fucking great in it. All of a sudden, he actually has an award for once.
Well, and so he transforms into like a weird little like fat penguin guy. So he started as this like edgelord kind of hot boy sex symbol, and then he's the Penguin, and then Banshees of Inisherin. I don't know what I was expecting, but him being the village idiot was not it. I was very surprised, and
it's just rounding back to being a pretty boy, but now he's just really dumb too.
He's so like stupid and kind of.
He's a simpleton.
He is. I was gonna say he's just very simple.
Yeah.
And isn't. I mean, he's not. They don't like uglify him, but he's not like really attractive in that movie.
Well, I mean, they
He's
make him dirty because he lives in like a little hut and he hangs out with his donkey all day.
It is not a glamorous role, but
no.
it's like incredible. Him and Brendan Gleeson. That's like some of the better acting I've seen in the last 5 years.
Which is why I want to go back to watch in Bruges or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, right.
Because they're both in that movie together with the same director, and I was like, oh well, if I liked the Banshees of Inisherin and how depressing it was, I probably will like the movie where they're hitmen trying to kill the same person or kill each other or whatever the fuck the movie's about.
So what else do we got from Colin Farrell though?
I mean, that's the thing. The problem
it's like
is
not a whole lot else.
You start
right?
to get it to where that's kind of it. He's been in a couple.
The donkey's the best performance.
The best part of it, it just trails off. I like that.
Actually.
I mean, you get to that, you get there, but then you start to. He kind of just is in random things like here and there. He was in a movie I liked a lot called Widows, which was their.
That was really
good.
Do you
remember what that one is?
Yeah.
It's also just my type of heist movie thing, so of course I like that. But he's really good in that.
Dan Kaluuya's in that too.
I think he popped up in another movie that I thought got like award buzz. Was it Roman something? I can't remember how the fuck did the movie.
Roman J. Israel Esquire.
Thank you, that one. I think he's a small role in that, but like otherwise, it's kind of been few and far between. To where when he is in stuff, I think he's doing a pretty good job. But I really am curious with this kind of resurgence to his career.
Well,
where he's going to go in the next 10 years.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've said the words True Detective yet either.
Oh,
I hadn't
he's
done
in the
TV
worst
yet.
season.
Yeah.
But I think people were generally impressed with his performance in it, even though they don't love that season of the show.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We also didn't reference Scrubs. He's in Scrubs.
Well, I was going to mention that at one point because that was almost the turning point for me because he's just sort of down to earth in that. And this was at a time where his career was at not rock bottom, but certainly not a height. And yet that was an episode where it's like, it's just a guest starring role and he's just talking in his normal Irish accent, looking like a hot boy. But it still seemed more relatable than a lot of the other stuff he had done to that point.
Yeah,
so maybe it's because I like Scrubs, but I was like, okay, I see you, Colin.
Alexander the Great, that was a big one for what a flop it was.
Yeah,
and I don't think he was particularly good in that either. So yeah, but we talked about that. He kind of started sort of hot and then took a bunch of bad roles.
I mean, I also skipped the other thing, which again somehow ties into Arnold Schwarzenegger, is he was in the redo of Total Recall. He's the main character.
Oh, and that also was not
and
good.
it was fucking awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like again, and that wasn't even that long ago. We're like talking about like a decade ago, I think is how far removed we are from the Total Recall.
If not a little bit more, yeah.
And so I'm like, there's that too where it's like, holy shit, it feels like when he tries to do bigger blockbustery type things, it mostly fails. And if he grounds himself a little bit into some of this stuff, it's like, or it's almost like independent, quirky shit. It's like, oh, well, he's kind of enjoyable to watch in this. I guess Batman's not independent or anything like that. He's just now playing a role where he's not himself looking like a pretty boy.
It's pretty grounded though. Like you have a lot of, I mean, who's the biggest name? It probably is Robert Pattinson, but he's not like huge.
Nice, huge.
John Turturro's in it. Like there's a lot of like smallish.
It's a lot of people who are like the second or third lead of movies who are all filling up.
Yeah, exactly,
movie, yes.
exactly. Wait, Peter, I hope you did not say Batman was an awful movie.
No, I just popped it up late.
Oh, okay, good. I thought it was.
Was he talking about Total Recall?
What? And then you got Paul Dano and Barry Keoghan, like all these like up and coming stars in Batman. It's gonna be really interesting.
Is anyone a fucking American in that goddamn Batman movie?
No, and that's why it's good.
Exactly.
As you're listing all these people off, I'm like, holy shit, everyone's doing a fake American accent.
Catwoman is, I think, American in that. What's now I forgot her name.
I think she's
American. What's her name?
Catwoman as in Halle Berry.
It's Zoe Kravitz is what you're trying to think of.
Catwoman as in Anne Hathaway.
Yeah,
no,
it's Zoe Kravitz.
The other one.
It's Zoe Kravitz.
Kravitz. I was like the daughter of a musician.
Yeah.
Is where
Lenny
Kravitz's
daughter. Yes.
Yeah.
Whose acting career is, I guess, mostly just like is pretty young still too,
Yeah.
to where she's Catwoman. But
so, Colin Farrell rating. Like,
he's probably still after all that and praising him for getting better, but it's only a small window of getting better. I probably still have to rate him lower than Sly because I mean he has probably more gigantic failures than Sly does.
Yeah, I would probably say like a 7 because I think the outlook. I'm weighing him for the potential of the future, even though we haven't seen it yet, which is not enough to get him in the Hall of Fame. But I'm gonna give him an optimistic 7, which is still less than 7.3. Is what I gave Stallone.
How old do you think he is, by the way?
Going
back to, I mean, we've talked about major roles in the early 2000s.
51.
It's 47.
47. I can't answer because I looked.
I looked at. I noticed it. I noticed it while I was
not too far off.
Things. It's like that's enough time. Like there's enough time to do some other stuff. And I mean, you're a Hollywood. I mean, shit, isn't like Brad Pitt nearing 60 years old and he still mostly looks like Brad Pitt? Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
These guys don't actually age that significantly into their 50s to where they can kind of get away with looking the same and doing the same roles without all of a sudden being like gray hair and they're the grandpa and shit.
What's weird? At what point, aging in Hollywood, you're young until you're old.
It fucking hits just
like,
all of a sudden. It just
because like no one's like Harrison Ford. He's like a young guy. It's like no, but then you look at Tom Cruise, who's in his 60s now.
I mean, it's unfortunate. It's super sexist. It's way worse for women because they decide a woman all of a sudden in her early 30s. Well, now you can only be a mom. And now you're in your 40s. Well, now you're a grandma. And these dudes are playing starring roles into their mid to late 50s.
Yeah.
And they're like still action shit. And it's no big deal.
A lot of the time, the love interests are way younger than they are.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's that too. And I was going to be like, well, what about like Meryl Streep or something? It's like, yeah, but that's one example in a sea of other bad ones.
I'm blanking on his name. The one who stars in Better Call Saul.
Bob Odenkirk?
Bob Odenkirk. He's now doing action movies all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And Odenkirk is not young in the sense. He transitioned as an old man into action movies because that's just what you can fucking do as a man in Hollywood. So anyway, I'm going to give Farrell a 6 with knowing that I assume after Penguin, after we get another Batman movie, I'm hoping he continues to work with that director that did Banshees of Inisherin and realizes maybe him and Gleason should somehow find a way to be in another fucking movie together. And because their chemistry is amazing. And I mean, granted, that's just a niche role of them being in old time Ireland when they're Irish dudes. I guess it's not super hard, but
just having the weirdest, pettiest fights.
Exactly. That's a great example. I mean, Peter's right. Like, Keanu is another perfect example of Keanu's already
who
old.
is on our list to tackle someday, and I think has a much better chance now following all the John Wick movies than he would have 7-8 years ago.
I mean, the John Wick movies are consistently better than the Rocky movies, for example. Like, if you want to talk about
from a quality perspective, but not from a cultural touch point perspective. So there is
quality of performance and movie and all that. So,
man, Keanu's gonna be interesting. We should do that next.
Keanu's 59. Everyone bitches because he dates that woman who's older than him, and he's almost 60. What the fuck doesn't? Right?
Yeah, and leave him alone. Let him do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
So I would reserve Farrell where I'm cautiously optimistic he'll get higher. I don't know if I'll ever get to an 8 unless he wins an Oscar. But it
might take a few.
It might take a few.
Penguin's awesome. It's gonna we need another 1 or 2 of those type of roles before I think he reaches that echelon.
But I feel like he has 15, 18 years of being able to do stuff like that without
just as an action star.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go with a 6 for now, but it is nice that it does feel like on an upswing and just good for him and good for
Yeah.
whoever's leading him in the right direction for this stuff, all of a sudden he's playing a different version of what he did before, and it's working.
It's nice to see some success for him. It's we've talked about a couple of them in this episode, but like the Ryan Reynolds, the Matthew McConaughey's, there are some folks who were dealt a tough hand at the start of their careers and could have easily just faded into mediocrity, and instead have now had a resurgence and maybe are at their pinnacle. I mean, I guess we'd say Ryan Reynolds is not at his pinnacle anymore, but like the point is he's still way above where he was 15, 20 years ago.
Man,
The problem here is that in the case of Colin Farrell, a 5 to 6 window with a couple really good performances, I don't think is enough to offset 15 years of just sort of being in the dregs.
Yep.
So I'm at like a 5.5, although I'm with Cody. I'm leaning towards that increasing as time goes on, but it feels like he's a tough Hall of Fame candidate. Again, if he gets a couple more huge things on his resume and or like Academy recognition, maybe. Right now, it's like I'm just content that he's carved out a niche for himself and now is being taken seriously. I think that's a big step for him.
An actor who you position as like someone whose career could fall off a cliff, who I think was rising to fame at the same time as him, is Josh Hartnett. And where the fuck happened to him?
True.
Yeah.
And they are, I think, almost the same age.
Isn't he back in movie?
I think he is acting.
He was in Oppenheimer.
I think he's popped up a little bit again, but I'm like, but his he just died off of a cliff.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. we've joked about in past segments. He is on the list at some point. If you do him in 1999, then it's a very different score than 2021 or something.
Hartnett was it Pearl Harbor or some shit like that, and he got really famous.
Yeah.
And then he did Hollywood Homicide, I believe, with was it
I don't remember.
Was it Harrison Ford, actually?
It was bad, though.
And it was terrible, but I actually think it might have been fucking Harrison Ford.
Well, he was in Sin City, and he was somewhat forgettable. He was in that one movie where he gets raped at the end, but it was like, it's okay because it's a comedy.
I don't think that's funny.
Why no? It wasn't funny. It was.
You're right.
It was the one where he was like being celibate for like 40 days.
He actually did get a Screen Actors Guild Award for what he did in Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So good for him also, but it's like that took forever for him to rebuild anything.
Christopher Nolan is a weird guy because he gives people chances. Anne Hathaway, Robert Downey Jr., Josh Hartnett. He's like casting, and then like Matt Damon. But even Cillian Murphy, like hasn't
it's Killian.
Man, every time I say his name, it doesn't fucking matter which version I say. Somebody tells me it's the other way.
It's Killian.
Great. Next
like
time
the beer.
I say Killian, somebody's going to tell me it's Cillian. I swear to God. 40 Days and 40 Nights.
Yes.
I think we're just going to gaslight you the next time you do it, too.
That's
Like,
probably
it's
I will
Cillian.
absolutely be like, no.
Everybody knows it's Cillian.
No, it's Sicilian. Come on.
like Sicilian, like the pizza.
Yeah. Christopher Nolan. What a cool guy.
He probably should be in the Hall of Fame.
And you know what? The McConaissance, that's going to be an interesting one, too, because he rose and fell and rose and kind of fell again.
Kind of fell off again. Ryan Gosling's another one in that category.
Well, rose and fell, but definitely on the rise now.
Maybe as hot as ever now, probably.
Dare you insult him?
Yeah, he was not so great for a little while.
Robin Williams is one I actually thought about doing this week, but I think Dave would have been heartbroken if we did it without him, because I think Dave would have the highest score for him. So Robin Williams will definitely come up in this segment. What's nice is we have a whole list of like 20-something names, and we haven't really even tried to brainstorm more recently, because there's plenty over the last 5 years that could warrant examination. So we'll probably see this again.
Too.
You know what? It's weird you brought up Robin Williams. He was in one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and I love him, though. Spoilers, he probably will get in the Hall of Fame, but I had the thought, Cody, today of any time it's happened twice where I've had people be like, "You're smart, you'll get a lot out of this movie." It has gone on in every case to be a fucking awful movie, and I'm like, why are you approaching it like this? You're smart, you'll get it. I'm like, oh god,
people told you that, and then you watched it, and you're like, they're no longer my friend.
Idiocracy was one.
How fucking dare you?
How
dare you? It's literally what our country is now.
Yeah, Idiocracy was not. The example of one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I didn't really like it though, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's so smart." It's like it's a lot of low hanging fruit.
It's low hanging fruit because we knew our country was about to be all low hanging fruit.
So there's that, but the worst one is Man of the Year with Robin Williams.
That's not a good movie.
It's maybe one of the worst movies. It's literally one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, but see, he took a bunch of bad movies at the beginning of his career. He was in RV, right?
Yep.
He just fucking drove an RV around with whoever child actress it was and whoever his fucking wife was.
What's the one where he is the priest, and it's John Krasinski and Mandy Moore, also bad.
I don't think I have any idea what movie
he's
that
a
is.
priest, and it's terrible. But anyways, just Man of the Year is so fucking. I could talk for hours on how bad this movie is. You have this fun, and then it turns into like a weird like conspiracy movie, and it gets like really serious, and then he doesn't win. Chris, spoilers. It turns out he didn't actually win. This is my biggest beef with the movie. He doesn't win, and the glitch in the voting machine is like. It always defaults to the other one, or like something so stupid. The worst, the most idiotic glitch you could ever think of.
I love that you've unintentionally gone on such a tangent that you're basically starting to begin a podcast I like a lot called "How Did This Get Made," where they just break down movies that sucked, and they're like, "How the fuck did this get made?" Is basically the thing.
I think that's my calling because Chris knows he probably drives him crazy because I will just fucking go off on minutia. Kills me.
I should send you this podcast because you just scroll through and find movies you've watched and you'll enjoy it.
Okay, great. Well, dissecting Man of the Year is for another episode, but
and no, Dave, I can see why you would think that because we've danced around the subject, but I just did the whole list of things we've done. And
remember Dave when he listed it off at the start of the episode to inform everybody?
It's fine.
Dave, remember when you weren't fucking on the episode? Remember when you just didn't make it?
But it means we can now
have an opinion.
We can do it with you in the future, so it's okay. It's a good outcome. He's going to make it in, I think. So that's it then. Sylvester Stallone, a 6.67, puts in between Jim Carrey and Will Smith. And a 6.17?
Would Jim Carrey get in now?
6.17 for Colin Farrell. I think Jim Carrey would be a little higher, but I don't know if he's clearing an 8.
Why is Jim Carrey so low?
Most of his movies aren't good.
Because that's essentially what we said. Like, he's got peaks that we all love, like Liar Liar. We all love The Mask. We all love some of the big highs. But then you look back at the 90s and you're like, there's a lot of crap he's in where he's also just the same manic guy in every single one of them.
I mean, I think Ace Ventura 2 is funny, but it's an awful, awful movie.
It's really bad.
So that was the reason then, and I think it would still hold true now. Like, yes, there is the Robotnik thing, as Peter mentioned, Sonic. So maybe it gives him a chance, but I mean, as much as I like him in that role, I'm not sure it moves him above an 8 for me.
I don't know if you can say poignant in the same sense as Idiocracy. I don't know if that works.
He just did.
It called its shot, and it ended up being kind of right.
I mean, kind of.
We got really stupid as a country.
And we're proud of how stupid we are.
Exactly. Also, again, fuck you for insulting that movie. I love that movie, and I quote that movie relatively often. God.
You know what? I watched it by myself, and it was like...
The
person I recommended it to was like, "You're gonna just love this movie, Sean. I swear to God, when I watched it, it blew my mind."
Did one of the characters from the movie tell you to watch the movie?
No, that was legitimately. He was my now ex-girlfriend's, of course, now ex, right? You don't.
I would hope so.
That. EMT friend. And he talked like
you
that.
should have taken the suggestion from me.
But he gave me a free oil change, so I watched Idiocracy as payment.
I should have recommended this movie to you before that.
I'm glad you didn't, because one, I didn't know you at all. This is like far predates.
That would have been funny if you popped out of a time machine and was like, Sean, watch this movie.
And then I watched it, I'm like, wow, that was a bad use of time travel.
If I crashed through your wall in a time machine sleeping coffin, as happens in the movie,
yeah,
and then told you to watch the movie.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it.
Has Maisie watched that movie?
No.
Well, we need to have her watch it.
I think the big problem is it's a comedy that's not funny. Is that like that? To me, that's an issue.
See, it's
right?
too stupid for you. You're too high above the stupidity.
No, I just like it.
You didn't like Why Come No Tattoo when he's trying to scan and pay his thing. That's fucking funny.
We've talked about this. My taste in comedies is weird. But luckily, there's a Venn diagram where we do relate to.
When we're in Phoenix, I'm gonna make Maisie watch it, and she'll probably think it's funny because it's so dumb.
Yeah, I'm sure
she probably will.
And we'll watch it together, and then she'll start saying shit from it, and you'll just start to learn that it is funny.
I don't know if that's how that works.
I think it is.
Now I have to watch the movie twice.
Last time I made her watch something, now you watch the fucking challenge all the time. So I think I have a pretty good track record.
All right,
thanks for that.
How about that? We'll watch Idiocracy and Uncle Drew in Phoenix.
Fine. I'll tread off.
All right.
I'll fucking watch Uncle Drew.
Fucking deal. All right, let's do it.
Because Airplane isn't good.
At least Chris kind of wants to watch Uncle Drew. Like, kind of.
Yeah, I just haven't gotten around to it, but it's not like I'm opposed to it. I just don't care enough to do it on my own.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, she's
that
gonna
might
like
be picked up on Mike. I don't
because
know.
Airplane's so fucking stupid, and Idiocracy's also pretty fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, we can't have shouting matches from the other room. So that's the end of this episode. Thank you for watching. That's Hall of Fame. We'll probably put it back in the rotation along with some of the other stuff, like Time Capsule, but also tier list and trivia. Trivia probably coming in a couple weeks here because it'll have been all of a sudden 3 months again. It'll be April. We'll just have to find an episode where everybody's here, which has been hard the last 3 weeks.
I have such a good costume for the next time. Oh my god!
It's our 10th show.
Costumes, I just win.
My costume is gonna propel me to victory.
And there's a surprise for the 10th show.
Oh shit!
A couple people who are watching have been notified what it is, but it's not viewer trivia. Sorry, Peter. I did that for the 600th episode. That was a massive pain in the ass. We will probably do that again, but that's not what's happening for the 10th.
Cool.
So that's coming up next week. We talked about what we're going to do next week when Dave was back. What was it?
It was if you get I know what it is.
Sports betting.
Sports betting, right?
And health stuff.
Health stuff. Yeah, I was going to lead off the episode by being like, yeah, we know the Shohei Ohtani stuff happened. We're going to talk about all the sports betting things because there's been like 5 different stories in the last week, and we joked when Cody joined that we were going to become a sports betting podcast, not to talk about the actual betting, but the trend. And boy, it's blowing up quicker than we could have expected.
But before you automatically tune out of next week, for those who don't care about sports betting, come in for the first half at least to talk about the health stuff because it's going to be really good.
Are you
going
to
for the sports betting stuff?
Are you going to tell us how helpful it is to eat protein soup?
No. Well, I will, but that's not what the gist is going to be about.
Sean's Protein Corner?
Here's the preview. We all happen to find a bunch of health-related articles randomly, and then we came together and Dave had some and I had some, so we're like, let's just talk about it on the show. It's interesting stuff for sure.
I think when you say we all, you excluded me because I
think Chris
and me. So we all was really half. We half.
Exactly.
So me and I guess Dave.
Me and Dave, yeah. But you guys will have plenty to say. It is interesting stuff.
And interesting how he's willing to play ball with Dave when he agrees with what he's bringing to the table.
It is interesting.
But I might disagree with what Dave
Well, that does sound like you, is to bring him in.
I'm going to look through every fucking medical bullshit article that says eating dark chocolate helps you not have heart attacks and drinking more wine means you're more healthy, and just spout off that bullshit nonsense.
Well, you know what? Bring those articles because I think they've kind of been debunked a little bit, especially the wine one.
Shocker.
People are like, you're actually probably better off not consuming alcohol.
Yeah, shocker. It's amazing.
Yeah. And probably a lot of what you read about antioxidants in wine are paid for by wine companies.
Sure. So that's called capitalism.
Yeah. Anyways, so all that and more. Tune in next week.
That'll be next week. Game show maybe a week after that. We'll see as we get closer. But that's sort of the rough outline at the moment. And as usual, we appreciate you watching, especially the live viewers and stuff. You get to participate in the show. Look, I'm going to click on Peter's thing again. There he is. Eat cereal for dinner. No, Peter, go fuck yourself.
Oh, fuck. I didn't know you
but
were
thank
Mr.
you for watching.
Kellogg. Did Mr. Kellogg pay you to say that?
Mr. Kellogg did pay him to say that and then tortured him in a back room. That's the end of this episode. You can find us in between shows at the website grayareas.live or at Gray Areas Live on some platforms like YouTube primarily. Hey, if you're not already subscribed, subscribe. We're getting close to 1,000 subscribers. That would be cool. I don't show much. Do it. We'll see you next week.
Eating cereal in your car is another good one.